first things first, let's just totally ignore the fact that in my first video of the year, I said I was going to make a video every other week, and that was months ago. Just never happened. Second, this video is coming from a multitude of sources of inspiration. First being a Reddit thread that my brother delightfully sent me of books that are considered classics that you think are terrible, and it unleashed a darkness in me that I had deeply tucked away, of books from high school and college that I wish I had never read. And then, delightfully, I was cleaning out my bookshelf, trying to, purge my life and get rid of some things, and I found a stack of books just like in a little corner that I was like, why do I have these books? I don't like any of these books. And I realized I'd been saving them to make such a video of books that I hate. I imagine everybody had to read The Scarlet Letter in high school. I don't know anybody who liked The Scarlet Letter in high school though. Like, I truly, if you liked it, please explain why in the comments, because I don't get it. The back of this copy says that Henry James called it the finest piece of imaginative writing yet put forth in the country. And I feel like maybe that was just meant as disparaging towards all the other writing in the country, because if this is the most imaginative piece of writing, I feel like we have some problems. If you somehow got away with not reading it, essentially it's about this woman named Hester Prynne who was accused of adultery, and she has to wear this scarlet letter, this letter A stands for adultery, on her chest all the time, and so everybody knows that she was an adulteress, and so she basically is treated like crap by everybody in the town. That's the garbage truck, just ignore it. Yeah, and so this garbage truck of a book. And so the whole book you're trying to figure out, like, ooh, who's the father of her bastard child? And but it's just not that interesting. Like, I don't actually care who the father was. And also her child is a total brat. Like, I wanted to smack Pearl in the face, like, the entire time. And then in the end, when the Reverend, it's, like, revealed that he was the adulterer, except not really, like, you don't really know, like, but you do, but, like, you don't. And, like, just this whole, like, way it's written is supposed to be ambiguous, is so, like, you don't really know who the father was, but you do. Like, it's just ugh. It's just written in a way that is so overly melodramatic. Like, in the end, literally the Reverend, like, rips open his shirt and he's carved an A in his chest and he collapses in a heap on the ground. But it's like, okay, like, it's not written in a way that is actually interesting or exciting, and it's so much melodrama for nothing. Like, there's just no point to any of it. Also, to add to the fact that there's no point to any of it, no one actually made Hester Prynne wear the A on herself. Like, nobody actually teaches you that in school, but when you do a deep dive into this book, like, nobody forced her. She literally did it herself just to, like, make a statement about, like, the absurdity of women being treated badly. Like, I can't. It's just, I think there's actually a theme through most of these books that all of the protagonists are horribly unlikable. And, like, Hester Prynne was unlikable, but at least she was kind of supposed to be unlikable. Like, you weren't supposed to, like, be in love with her. Pip, I think you're supposed to like, and he's just a jerk through kind of the whole thing. Like, he's this poor child, and then he gets his big break, and then he just keeps, like, using and abusing everyone around him. And then in the end, he's just like, oh man, why is my life so crappy? Like, maybe because you've, like, completely isolated yourself from anyone who might have loved you, and you're just an arrogant brat. So, like, cool. Good story. Honorable mention book that I don't have with me, thank goodness, but Ethan Frome. Can someone explain to me why we had to read Ethan Frome? It could have been so good. It could have been this delightful, tragic love story. And I realize I just said delightful, tragic love story, but tragic love stories can be great. But, like, it could have been good. It could have been this beautiful tale of love unrequited and love lost. But instead, the two lovers are like, you know what, we can't be together, so we should just kill ourselves, Romeo and Juliet style, whatever. And instead of actually killing themselves in an effective way, they decide, let's just crash our sled into a tree. That'll do it. But it doesn't. They don't even die. So then he ends up being a cripple who has to like totally just live his life miserable and still like being a slave driver. And then she ends up like, yeah, messed up and paralyzed, I'm pretty sure. And then they still can't be together. But then they're still alive, left to like walk endlessly in misery. Great. What was the point of that? Ethan? Who even wrote Ethan from? I don't even know. I had to read this book twice. And by had to read it twice, I mean I read it once. And then the second time I was supposed to read it, I spark noted it because it was so bad I could not bear to get through it one more time. Heart of Darkness, yeah, again, I had to read it. What is in here? I have things in here. Holy crap, this book became a time capsule. Pause, pause, pause. Ah! What even? Okay, okay, okay. I have a newspaper clipping about Project Runway designer Ping, who if you saw her, she was nuts. But she got her own line. She was from Chicago, so apparently I saved that. I have my school notes that for the first 5 sections of Heart of Darkness. I don't remember though whether this was high school or college when I had to read this book. And reading it, none of this makes any sense to me at all. I don't know who any of these people are. I have Lauren Jin's high school graduation party invitation. And I have Sarah Martinson's hall pass. So you know what? This was totally worth it. Oh, and there's more. I also have a list of dance costuming that I needed to buy, apparently, probably for my high school senior dance show. Wow. Cool. Back to Heart of Darkness, though. Woof, that was a ride. Heart of Darkness is a book about British colonization in Africa, and again, has promised to be interesting, has potential, and all I remember about it is that, you know, the whole time in the book they're traveling, and then they keep traveling, and then they keep traveling, and then they keep traveling deeper into the heart of darkness, and deeper still into the heart of darkness, and deeper still into the heart of darkness. And it's like, it's almost like they really wanted you to know that they were journeying into the heart of darkness. I'm just gonna read you the last sentence of the book here. The offing was barred by a black bank of clouds, and the tranquil waterway leading to the uttermost ends of the earth flowed somber under an overcast sky, seemed to lead into the heart of an immense darkness. That's A, that's one sentence. B, that's a tough sentence to muck your way through. And C, that sentence is basically repeated 30,000 times. I kind of get the point of having to read this book in terms of symbolism or whatever, and like pointing out racism and this and that, but it's like, why couldn't we have just read To Kill a Mockingbird and like called it a day? So the second time I had to read Heart of Darkness, it was in college, and then my professor at the time wanted us to read this book, which was supposedly the African response to Heart of Darkness. So great concept in theory, like you've got the perspective of the white, you know, British colonizers, and then you've got the Africans who are being colonized, like you've got their response, except the protagonist in this book is Okonkwo, who is supposed to be like the leader of his village, and you know, the British come and colonize in, and you think that like he's gonna be like, you know, no, we need to hold to our, you know, traditional ways, and like they're gonna lead this mighty revolt and push the British out. Does not happen. He is so stuck in his ways that he makes a series of very poor choices that lead his entire village to banish him several times. And he's banished and he comes back, and he's banished and he comes back, and every time he comes back, like this village is more colonized than ever, which then leads him to be even more upset, which then eventually led him to kill his own child, which then his village is like, yo, you gotta go, like you're making really poor choices and like we can't have you here anymore. And he's just like, and gets all aggressive and mad. Meanwhile, his whole African village is like, actually these white guys have some pretty solid ideas, maybe we should like roll with it. And then Okonkwo is like freaking out, and then he goes away for a while, and then he comes back, and again everything is terrible, and then he ends up just killing himself in the end. And I wasn't even mad about it. He's so obnoxious and so frustrating and so lame and like a murderer, and it's like, why is this supposed to be like a good rebuttal to this? Because this basically says black people are evil and the enemy, and the further we go deeper into their jungles, like the more insane we get and we're going into the heart of darkness. And this just says, actually, we're cool with those white people coming in, and if you actually don't let the white people come in, then that's when things really turn bad, which neither of these are correct. Like, they're both just bad responses to colonization. Like, can we do better? Can we do better? Last but not least is a book, which is very well known in Sycamore, Illinois as being the AP English sophomore book. But very few people outside of Sycamore, Illinois' AP English classes have read it because it's stupid and because nobody wants to read it. Nobody cares to read it. There's no point in reading it. That's the mayor of Casterbridge. Let's just set the scene. Right off the bat, the mayor, well, he's not the mayor yet, this guy. This guy gets drunk and sells his wife and child to a sailor. And then when he wakes up from his hangover, he's like, oh crap, I sold my wife and child to a sailor. I'm never gonna drink again. And then he raises himself to a place of high esteem and becomes the mayor of this town. Then his wife and child come back and he's like, oh crap, hey, sorry, like all those years ago that I sold you to a sailor. And they're like, yeah, well, it's fine. Like I had to marry the sailor, but then the sailor died, so now we made our way back to you. Except it turns out it's not his real wife and child, or maybe it's his real wife and not his real child. I think it's just not his real daughter. Like his actual daughter died like on the boat, and then his wife adopted some other child and named her the same name and then claimed that it was his daughter, and it's not really his daughter, which then drives him to drink again, and then everything goes bad, and then the new daughter ends up like getting engaged to this guy that the mayor doesn't like, because once he finds out it's not really his daughter, he kind of has these weird like incestual feelings towards her. And then like she ends up getting married and he's real upset about it, but he gives her a canary, and then the canary ends up like dying in the cage the same day that like he dies of like drunkenness. Basically is the whole plot of the book. It's weird. It's makes no sense half the time. There's like 10,000 characters, none of whom matter. And all of it's supposed to be symbolic of like not drinking. And it's like, cool, could have told me that in the first chapter when he sells his wife and kid to the sailor. Didn't need the whole book of weird randomness. And yeah, it's odd. The only saving grace about it is that like it was written as like a serial like article in a newspaper, so every chapter is like a little bit of a cliffhanger because you had to wait until like the next publication of the newspaper to like find out what happened next. So like that's the only decent aspect of this book, is that it did leave you being like, okay, what's gonna happen in the next chapter? But beyond that, then like you got to the next chapter and it's like, oh, nothing of consequence happened in this next chapter. Also, who is that guy? Also, I'm so confused. Also, what the F is this book? This has been an episode of Jordan rants about all the books she hates and also like uncovers high school relics. And yeah, there will be no further episodes of this series because I'm getting rid of all my bad books. I don't even know what this was, but I hope you enjoyed it, and bye.